Hello, everybody, and welcome to the X Factor with the Crypto Hipster. This is your host, Jamil Hasan, the Crypto Hipster, where I bring you news, analysis, insights, and my commentary on crypto and blockchain all around the world. And it's season four, episode one. Can you believe it? We're in season four already. I got a little bit of a mandate change for you. I have been all along covering, the crypto news, insights, analysis, and commentary from around the world of specifically policy and regulation issues impacting the world. And this X Factor, to tell you up front, will continue solely on policy and regulatory issues around the world. Sometimes I got a sprinkle and some fun stuff. Like today we're going to talk about that Caroline Ellison FTX court case going on. We're going to talk about that. I'll tell you up front if there's something that goes outside of policy and regulation, and if it goes outside of crypto and blockchain. And I have an AI article out of China today I want to talk about a little bit. But I'll be adding 2 more shows throughout the week, focusing on NFTs, metaverse separately, and Ethereum, Bitcoin, alternative coins separately. We'll have 3 shows throughout the week. This is the X Factor. Since the Crypto Hipster podcast, Crypto Hipster show, we will have a C factor and we will have an H factor. I'm excited. I'm going to be able to bring this all to you and really expand our horizons here. Join me, please, and let's go. Let's kick off today. So I thought you guys might want to, my audience might want to hear all about the awesome stuff that's coming down the pike. We got 3 shows a week now from just one, starting this coming week. And be on the lookout because it'll be a Monday, Wednesday thing, and it'll be awesome. So let's kick off the week. Let's kick off things right now. Let's go. The first article we're going to talk about is the G20. The G20 adopts IMF-FSB synthesis paper on crypto regulation. Okay, so the group of 20 accepted the regulatory roadmap proposed by in a joint synthesis paper by the IMF and the Financial Stability Board. On October 13, which was this morning, before we all woke up here in the States, the G20, an intergovernmental forum comprising 19 sovereign countries, the EU, and the African Union, unanimously adopted the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors communique during its meeting in Marrakesh, Morocco. G20 members accepted the crypto regulatory roadmap proposed in a joint report by IMF and the FSB, titled IMF-FSB Synthesis Paper Policies for Crypto Assets. They say, we call for swift and coordinated implementation of the G20 roadmap, including implementation of policy frameworks, outreach beyond G20 jurisdictions, global coordination, cooperation, and information sharing, and addressing data gaps. I mean, there are a lot of data gaps globally, and everywhere that you go, in every area, there are gaps. But the IMF FSB paper advocates for comprehensive oversight of crypto instead of a blanket ban. And its high-level recommendations include cross-border cooperation and information sharing between regulators, a demand for the comprehensive governance and risk management frameworks for crypto companies, and a guarantee of access to relevant data provided by companies to the authorities. Well, they just want to track this stuff, right? According to the paper, the first review should happen by the end of 2025, then 2025, because governments move slowly. I should say they move slowly. In October, the IMF published another working paper titled Assessing Microfinancial Risks from Crypto Assets. Within it, IMF researchers who move slowly proposed a crypto risk assessment matrix for countries to spot indicators and triggers of potential risks in the sector. Let me know your thoughts. How's that going to fly in the face of flyness? Yeah, I don't even know if flyness is a word as a noun, but hey, it might be an adverb, it might be an adjective, it might be something totally separate than that. It might be a pronoun. That's not a pronoun or prepositional phrase, but hey, who's counting English? We'll move to the U.S. And this is where things get juicy, ladies and gentlemen. Secret Alameda recording. Oh, it's a secret. Well, it's not secret anymore. It was, permissed and allowed in court. Recording reveals exact moment staff learned about FTX deposits. It was a 75-minute recording by Caroline Ellison. An audio clip of Caroline Ellison has revealed the exact moment 15 former Alameda research staff found out the hedge fund was borrowing user funds from FTX. Borrowing user funds. Stealing user account dollars, crypto, for their own personal gain. That's how I read it. But let's say the full-length recording obtained provides fresh insights into the palpable tension Ellison and Alameda staff felt in the lead up to the FTX collapse. Alameda was kinda borrowing a bunch of money via open term loans and using that to make various illiquid investments. So like a bunch of FTX and FTX US equity, other stuff. Most of Alameda's loans got called in order to meet those recalls. Ellison explained during an all-hands meeting in Hong Kong on November 9, 2022, we ended up borrowing a bunch of funds from FTX, which led to FTX having a shortfall in user funds, she says. Okay. FTX basically always allowed Alameda to borrow user funds. She added select segments of the audio recording of the meeting were also played before the court on the 8th day of SBF's, Sam Bankman-Fried's criminal trial on October 12, which was part of witness testimony from Christian Drappy, former software engineer at Alameda. Drappy's appearance on the witness stand came immediately following 3 days of Ellison's testimony. It is understood that before the meeting, Drappy and many other Alameda employees had no idea that the hedge fund had allegedly been using FTX customer deposits to prop up its trading activity. In the recording, Drappy also overheard asking Ellison when she became aware that Alameda was misusing FTX user deposits, who else in the company had known about it. Ellison initially shied away from answering, but Drappy pressed again. I'm sure this wasn't like a YOLO thing, right? According to the report, Drappy had to explain the term YOLO, which means, what does it mean? To everyone in attendance, saying that he wanted Ellison to confirm that the use of FTX deposits hadn't just been a spontaneous decision. Wow. Okay. Fraud, more fraud, and fraud. Yeah, fraud alert. Oh, boy. Okay. What else is going on here with Caroline? Sweet Caroline. Oh, you never committed fraud so good. I feel fine. All right, I digress. Caroline Ellison, secret recording offers trove of explosive revelations. This got this from Cointelegraph. This article says the ongoing trial of former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried fraud, whatever how you pronounce it, has uncovered a series of explosive revelations in the form of testimonies from former FTX and Alameda research executives. The latest court proceedings on October 12 saw former Alameda CEO Caroline, sweet Caroline, oh, you never committed fraud so good, testify the third day, following which the jury was presented with a recording of a meeting she held with Alameda staffers, right? We talked about that, right? Alameda's bad investments led to the financial crisis at FTX. The first and foremost revelation came early. Said most of Alameda's, it's just what she said, most of Alameda's loans got called in order to meet those loan results. We ended up borrowing a bunch of funds on FTX, which led to FTX having a shortfall in user funds. And so once there started being like FUD about this, and users started withdrawing funds. She revealed that Alameda's bad loans created market panic around FTX. Also, FTX planned to raise more funds to compensate users. Oh, that's a key hallmark of a Ponzi. When one of the employees attended the meeting, asked Ellison how FTX intended to pay back its customers, Ellison said, basically, FTX is trying to raise in order to do this compensate users thing. But yeah, after the crash, no one wanted to invest. I don't know. Obviously, in retrospect, the plan of waiting around for several months and like for the market environment to get better and then raise. Okay. She also was accused of having a nervous laughter, whatever that means. People get nervous laughter when they're have anxiety or when they're guilty and they know they're being found out. So that I'm not going to pass that on. Alameda almost always has access to users' funds at FTX. That's what also happened. And they also said, I saw this on Twitter, that they were paying Thai prostitutes to blackmail or bribe Chinese officials to give back $1 billion. I don't know how true that is. I just read it on Twitter. I wouldn't be surprised anything. This keeps getting better and better, and I wish I was a fly on the wall, able to attend that courtroom, because man, oh man, there's so much comedy. I mean, if you look at some of the shows that are on TV today where they call themselves comedies, they're not comedies anymore. But this is surefire comedy. Let's go. All right. So let's talk about another piece of comedy. All right, let's get out of that. And I'm not wishing any ill will on, anybody in that courtroom, because I didn't have any money in FTX why didn't I have money in FTX? Well, I host podcasts and I had guests on my podcast, and I've never showed any coins, but some of the guests I had on my show, and I won't name names, were interviewed by podcasters who were paid by somebody from FTX to shill Solana while they're interviewing the guests that I had. I never showed anything to them, and they never showed anything to me. And I wasn't paid off. I wasn't a media person who was paid by FTX. So when I saw it happening, I'm like, you know what? This isn't quite the most ethical thing I've ever seen. But I'm a buyer. I'm going to be a buyer of Solana once it falls under $3. I will promise you that. Because I want the VC price that I didn't get. And if I get the VC price someday when it's under 3, then I'll take it. It's fine. All right, let's go next. What happens if the SEC doesn't appeal Grayscale? And that wasn't what I said to you, was not investment advice. It was personal. By the way, personal. I didn't get the VC price. All the other VCs did. So, and I wasn't a VC, but all the other podcasters were offered a VC price and I wasn't. So my podcast is still standing though. I'm still here and I'm growing and building, by the way. But let's move on. What happens if the SEC doesn't appeal Grayscale spot Bitcoin ETF ruling? That's a good question. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission will soon reach its deadline to appeal the court decision that ruled in favor of Grayscale Investments, forcing the regulator to review the fund manager's application for a spot Bitcoin ETF or fund. While many observers don't believe the securities regulator will attempt to appeal the court's decision, analysts say there could still be ways for the SEC to delay approval for Grayscale's spot Bitcoin ETF conversion. This morning, October 13th, Friday the 13th, by the way, it's Friday the 13th, and the SEC's in the news. What does that tell you? The SEC met either appeal of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals decision to the U.S. Supreme Court, request the appeals court revisit its ruling, or follow the court's August order and review Grayscale's bid to change its Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, GBTC, into a spot Bitcoin ETF. Okay. In October 12 post spotting on Twitter, or X's user question, who will be renamed anonymous, Bloomberg ETF analyst Eric Balchunas said an appeal was unlikely, though there could still be other hurdles. We think an appeal is a long shot, but there's always a chance of something else happening. Meanwhile, in a separate post, fellow Bloomberg ETF analyst James Seifert said that an SEC attempt to deny on new grounds was unlikely and a very difficult needle to thread, but it could find ways to keep delaying. It can always find ways to keep delaying. can. It's true. What do you think? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts. And then we're going to go to Terraform Labs. Terraform Labs contends Citadel Securities had a hand in its stablecoin collapse. Yeah, I can see that. Let's see. Duquan founded Terraform Labs has again pointed the finger, because criminals do point fingers instead of taking blame themselves, at market maker Citadel Securities for its role in an alleged concerned intentional effort to cause the depeg of its Terra Luna stablecoin in 2022. I heard that. I don't know if it's validated or verified, but I heard a rumor like that, and I don't know how true it is. So I can't tell you that it's true. It's not, to me, it's not true. It's a rumor. But on October 10, which was Tuesday, Terraform Labs filed a motion in the U.S. District Court of Southern District of Florida to compel Citadel Securities to produce documents relating to its trading actions in May 2022, around the time its stablecoin, now known as Terra USD Classic, depegged from the dollar, right? And I know there's people who didn't like it. I know there are people who didn't like it. I know there are people who were going after it. I don't know if it's these people or other people, but I know it was not a popular investment choice, although Luna had been over $100 or something at the time. But the stablecoin, crashed from $1 to 2 cents, and it was caused by certain third-party market participants intentionally shorting the stablecoin instead of instability in the algorithm, Duquan says. Movant, Terraform, contends that the market destabilization that occurred did not result from instability in the algorithm underlying the stablecoin, said the firm in its motion. Instead, Movant, which was Terraform, contends that the market was destabilized due to the concerted intentional effort of a certain third-party market participants to short and cause UST to depeg from its $1 price. A lot of people were not happy with this financial instrument, by the way, but saying Citadel did it or is not appropriate if you don't have facts. You can say there were rumors at the time saying people hated this instrument and wanted it to crush, and it was people from the traditional hedge fund world who didn't like it. That I'll go to bat on and say, from all the feeds I saw on Twitter at the time, X, that's true. The motion also cites publicly available evidence suggesting that Citadel head Ken Griffin intended to short the stablecoin around the time of the depeg. You might have intended it. Okay. There's publicly available evidence suggesting that the head of Citadel entities, Ken Griffin, intended to short UST at or about the same time of the May 2022 depeg. That's what this filing says. Okay. And I don't know. I know AMC. I know what's that game? Stop. I know those caused Citadel to lose money, and they weren't happy. But why take it out on crypto? Why not take it out on the fragmentation of fractionalization of stocks? Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about Voyager. Voyager Digital. Now we talk about Terra, we talk about FTX. Let's talk about Voyager. Voyager Digital was no better than a house of cards, said the CFTC commissioner. A commissioner for the United States Commodity Future Trading Commission has slammed Voyager Digital for its mistakes that eventually led to the loss of billions of dollars for customer funds. Okay. In an October 12th statement, Commissioner Kristen Johnson took aim at Voyager for misleading practices, ignoring warning signs, and bare bones due diligence, which failed to protect consumers. Because of Voyager's failures, the company became no better than a house of cards, he says. Commodities Commissioner said Voyager turned a blind eye to what its subsidiary investment firms were doing with its own customer funds. It is astounding that Voyager failed to exert pressure on the firms where it invested its customers' assets, she said, instead of demanding that investment firms receive customer assets offered greater levels of transparency. Voyager shirked. See how high my voice got there? Shirked the long-established expectations for custodians and simply dispatched customer funds with little effort to preserve the customer funds. Johnson's comments came after the regulator, along with Federal Trade Commission, filed parallel lawsuits against Voyager's former CEO, Stephen Ehrlich, on October 12th. How's that going to go for Steve Ehrlich? So far, it's not going good for SBF, and next September might not go good for Mashinsky. So let's talk about a couple other issues here in the US. Let's talk about, and I bring this up because I interviewed this company last February on the Crypto Hipster podcast. You can listen to the podcast in its entirety on Apple, on Spotify, on Amazon, on Google, everywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. Trader Joe, not Trader Joe, the supermarket, but Trader Joe, decentralized exchange. I interviewed that company. It was a splendid podcast. It still is. This 1 year, 9 to 10 months later. Trader Joe's grocery store, however, is filing a trademark lawsuit against the Trader Joe DEX. So that's why I bring it to you. Because are they in the right? And I want you to know, I want you to find it. Tell me. Let me know. Lawyers representing the United States supermarket chain Trader Joe's have filed a complaint in California against the centralized exchange Trader Joe. In October 5 filing, the U.S. District Court of the Central District of California, Trader Joe's sued Trader Joe and its co-founder Cheng-Chi Liu over federal trademark infringement and dilution claims. According to the lawsuit, Trader Joe and Liu used many of the supermarket's ideas, from donning a red cap, which is red features prominently in the store's branding, to its narrative for one of the platform's fictionalized characters. Defendants committed fraud to obscure that origin story and to prevail in international legal proceedings with Trader Joe's over the domain name, recognizing that the true story would doom their case and any plausible claim of right to use the Trader Joe XYZ.com domain. Reads the lawsuit. Trader Joe's sent defendants cease and desist letters demanding they stop using the Trader Joe's name, says the lawsuit. Well after Trader Joe's demanded that they stop, defendants continued capitalizing on Trader Joe's name, goodwill, and brand recognition, built up through Trader Joe's investment across more than a half a century to peddle their own goods and services. The store's lawyers point to Trader Joe using confusingly similar names on exchanges' websites, YouTube page, Reddit, GitHub, LinkedIn, Substack, CoinMarketCap, Telegram, and Discord. For the content of some of those accounts, according to the lawsuit, Trader Joe, using the possessive form of its name, Trader Joe's apostrophe S, matched the supermarket's chain's exact wordmark, registered as a trademark. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Trader Joe's supermarket might have a strong case, but Trader Joe's supermarket has a recognizable brand in the U.S., but not overseas. And this DEX, this decentralized exchange, is overseas. So let me know. Listen to the podcast. If you haven't listened to that podcast, go back to my archives, listen to it, let me know what you think, and then let me know what your thoughts are on the court case. I'm interested to find out what your thoughts are. You can message me through LinkedIn. It's probably the best way. You can email me, at cryptohipster.tech. That's my email. Let's see, info@cryptohipster.tech to be specific. One more article in the U.S., Barnbridge DAO. We heard a lot about Barnbridge DAO. They have voted to comply with the SEC's order. The decentralized autonomous organization, DAO, behind the decentralized protocol Barnbridge, has conducted its voting on how to react to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's potential demands. The voting ended on October 12 with a unanimous decision to comply with the SEC's potential demands and pay fines if necessary. Tyler Ward and Troy Murray were nominated as the DAO's special delegates for dealing with the regulator, because no one wants to deal with them. At the same time, Douglas Park remains the DAO's legal counsel and will sign the final version of the order on behalf of Barnbridge. Voters have approved the DAO's treasury to sell all tokens that is permitted to sell if needed to pay the fine to the overreaching, whatever you want to call it, Securities and Exchange Commission. Let's leave the U.S. because the U.S. is just fraught with, well, this is the show. This is my show. It's litigation. It's policy. It's regulation. it's rules, it's all that fun stuff that people don't want to talk about ever because it's necessary in the world. And let's go to somewhere else in the Americas. Let's go to Brazil. Brazil's Congress puts Binance's CEO CZ in the crosshairs for indictment. Okay. So a Brazilian congressional committee has recommended local law enforcement move to indict Binance CEO Chingpeng Zhao, otherwise known as CZ, and 3 other Binance executives following a probe into financial pyramid schemes in Brazil. On October 10, the committee released a 500-page final report accusing Zhao and local Binance executives Daniel Magabeira, Guilherme Haddad Nazar, and Thiago Carvalho of fraudulent management practices operating without sufficient authorization and offering securities trading without approval. In the report, the committee led by Deputy Ricardo Silva claimed that Binance, Zhao, and others set up an opaque network of legal entities, all controlled directly or indirectly by CZ, without defined business purposes and with no other purpose than evading compliance into the law. Hogwash BS. That's what I say. Hogwash BS. You know who else doesn't like CZ is here in the US? It's Mr. Wonderful. Well, everybody calls him Mr. Wonderful, but to me, yo, man, you are not wonderful in any way because you lie. Lying to the public, man, that takes a needed talent, takes a skill and ability. Do it with a straight face, you know. And I see your eyes, shifty boy. The report also recommends the indictment of 45 other people, citing strong evidence of alleged participation in criminal schemes, with those named linked to multiple crypto companies, including travel firms 123 Milhas and the crypto scheme 18K, Ronaldo, Hino, and others. All right. Didn't mean to bring Mr. Wonderful into it, but if you're talking about things that are not wonderful, that's the first thing that pops to my mind. All right, moving on across the pond, we're going to go to Europe, and the first place we're going to go, we always go in Europe, is you go to the UK. Unless we're talking about Europe in general, let me go to Europe in general first. But let's talk about British Prime Minister's urged action on NFT copyright infringements and crypto fan tokens. So a UK parliamentary committee has called for a crackdown on sport fan tokens and other tokens. To prevent and protect creators from copyright infringement associated with non-fungible tokens and address potential harms from sporting groups issuing digital assets. In an October 11 press release this week, Culture, Media, and Sports Committee members warned the most pressing issue was the risk to artists' intellectual property rights arising from the ease and speed at which NFTs can be minted, compared with a slow process of artists looking to enforce their rights. Artists are at risk of seeing the fruits of their hard work pinched and promoted without permission, while fraudulent and misleading adverts add an extra layer of jeopardy for investors involved in what is already inherently a risky business, said committee chair Dame Caroline Sweet. Well, actually, this isn't Sweet Caroline. This is just Dame Caroline. Dame Caroline Dinenach. In an accompanying report, the committee recommended the government work with NFT marketplaces to address these infringements by introducing a code of conduct that protects creators, consumers, and sellers from infringing and potentially fraudulent materials sold on such platforms. The committee also warned of the potential harms of sporting leagues or teams creating cryptocurrencies to offer to fans and called for any measure of fan engagement to exclude such tokens. Yeah, well, that's what they're doing over there in the UK. But, you know, sports is a big business here in the US. And if you do that here, that would take away from a lot of sporting teams, NFTs. Even at Disney World, man, even at Disney World, they have NFTs. They just don't call it NFTs. They call it something else. They call it experiences. They have NFTs, and that's a big money-making thing. So if UK doesn't like money, I know a lot of people over here in the US that do, and that are good players, ethical players, and not wonderless. French regulator sees DeFi as disintermediated and not decentralized. This week, the Autorité de Contrôle Prudentielle de Résolution I'm not good at French. I never took it in school. I took Spanish. My kid takes French. My wife took French. I don't know it at all. If I went to France, I'd be lost. They wouldn't. The ACPR, part of the French central bank, published a summary of its public consultation on a regulatory framework for decentralized finance. The public consultation lasted 2 months from April to May 2023 in response to the initial paper discussing possible regulations for DeFi in the country. External contributions nudged the ACPR to surprising revelations, especially regarding the structural persistence of centralization patterns. The ACPR therefore believes that the term disintermediated finance is more appropriate than that of decentralized finance. The operational risk of this paradoxical high degree of concentration in DeFi concerns the physical infrastructure hosting blockchain nodes in which cloud service providers play a central role. Let me know your thoughts. You say potato, I say potato. You say tomato, I say tomato. You say grape, I say grape. No, that's not good. Blueberry, blueberry. All right. European regulator, DeFi comes with significant risks as well as benefits. And so I got this backwards. The European Securities and Market Authority. I should have led off with this one. Well, we can't all make mistakes. I mean, we can't all get everything right on the first shot. And that's what I do. I bring things to you every week, unscripted, off the cuff, off the hip. The European Securities Market Authority, the ESMA, the European Union's Financial Markets Supervisory Authority, released an article on decentralized finance at the risk it poses to the EU market. In a 22-page report, the ESMA admits the promised benefits of DeFi, such as greater financial inclusion, the development of innovative financial products, and the enhancement of financial transaction speed, security, and costs. However, the paper also highlights the significant risks of DeFi. According to ESMA, the first is liquidity risk tied to the highly speculative and volatile nature of many crypto assets. The authority compares the 30-day volatility of Bitcoin and Ether with the Euro Stoxx 50 index, with the cryptocurrencies being on average 3.6 and 4.7 times higher than the stock index. Well, it's one thing to look at the numbers, okay? The SMA says it doesn't believe that DeFi manages to avoid counterparty risk. Even if it does in theory, it should be lowered or non-existent due to smart contracts and atomicity. However, smart contracts are not immune to errors and flaws. You know what else isn't? Insider trading by government officials in the US and other places in the world who get to buy stocks because they know what's going on before everybody else does. They can turn $100,000 salaries into $40 million by playing the stock market. So when you look at the crypto market, they don't have that kind of insider knowledge and information. So what role does insider information and insider knowledge have on the disparity between the stock market and crypto? That has not been addressed by this report. Maybe it should. Maybe it should be. All right. So that's thoughts on that. And let's go to Asia, where things kind of recently have made just a little bit more sense, okay, than TradFi and governmental stuff. China has set stricter rules for trading generative AI models, okay? Well, let's look at this. This is important, okay? China has released draft security regulations for companies providing generative artificial intelligence services and company restrictions on data sources used for AI model training. The proposed regulations were released Wednesday by the National Information Securities Standardization Committee, comprising representatives from the Cyberspace Administration of China, the Ministry of Industrial and Information Technology, and law enforcement agencies. Generative AI, as exemplified by the accomplishments of OpenAI and ChatGPT, acquires the ability to perform tasks through the analysis of historical data and generates fresh content, such as text and images based on this training. Okay. And the committee recommends performing a security evaluation of the content used to train publicly accessible generative AI models. Content exceeding 5% in the form of unlawful and detrimental information will be designated for blacklisting. This category includes content advocating terrorism, violence, subversion of the socialist system, harm to the country's reputation, and actions undermining national cohesion and societal sustainability. Let me know your thoughts. And by the way, I just finished up, I'm now at book 251. I finished up my Crypto Hipster Chronicles and Silhouettes. They're all available on Amazon.com. None of it is AI generated. None of it. Everything was from my podcast. They were unique content. I came up with the questions. I came up with the conversations for my guests. My guests answered my questions. My guests displayed their thought leadership, and those deserve to be made into books, and they were, and I did. And a lot of them are available on Amazon, and that is non-AI generated content. It's a big difference between the two. And I like to think that, making books that are fully AI generated, kind of, me as an author, it's kind of cheating. That's why I don't do it. And let's still stay in China. China opens industrial park for digital yuan, CBDC development in Shenzhen. China opened an industrial park dedicated to developing the digital yuan ecosystem this week. This is the first such park dedicated to central bank digital currency, which is also referred as the ECNY. The industrial park is located in Luohu district of Shenzhen, adjacent to Hong Kong. It is opening with 9 residents. According to reports, the district government has announced 10 initiatives to boost the development of the digital yuan ecosystem that involve payment solutions, smart contracts, hard wallets, and the digital yuan promotion. Let me know how you think that's going to go. I think it's a wonderful idea. I think they should do it all over the U.S. here, Well, not with digital yuan, with crypto, with like Bitcoin and Litecoin and Ethereum. Not a digital dollar, but a digital dollar will help the government with, learning their inflation metrics in a much easier way than they do now, which is just getting sentiment and assessments and thinking what they think. Let's stay in Asia and go to Malaysia. Hata receives in-principle approval to be 5th Malaysian digital exchange. The Malaysian-based Hata has received in-principle approval from Securities Commission Malaysia SC to register as a recognized market operator, as a digital asset exchange and digital broker. The approval means Hata could launch its services in 6 to 9 months. Hata will become the 5th regulated digital asset exchange in Malaysia and the first legal entity to receive approval as a digital broker, allowing it to display trade orders from other regulated exchanges. Hata also received a money broker license from the Labuan Financial Services Authority in June, allowing it to exchange USD. The Labuan International Business and Financial Center is a special economic zone. Let me know how you think that's going to go. If Malaysia's open up business for crypto, it's wonderful to see. And we're going to go to Africa, the final resting place for the show. Not a resting place, but a discussion place. The Central Bank of Nigeria, the Naira, is no threat to financial stability. Whoa, what did they say? The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, had to publicly insist that its Naira project, one of the world's first operating central bank digital currencies, does not threaten the country's financial stability. A press release this week on Monday from CBN came in response to news items on some media platforms, suggesting that the Naira threatens Nigeria's financial stability. Some news pieces, such as the one published by a daily Nigerian newspaper, Punch, point to the CBN's recently released report titled Economics of Digital Currencies, a book of readings. In the report, CBN experts highlight the gradual rise of the Naira adoption, marked by a 0.2% share if compared with Nigerian banks' liquidity. They also admit that the funds held by citizens in the Naira wallets can't be used by commercial banks. The very hypothetical threat that could arise from this observation is the lack of liquidity suffered by the banks in the case of total adoption of Naira. However, such fear is one of the fundamental theoretical aspects of the discussion about any CBDC. And that is a wrap. Thank you very much for tuning in to the X Factor with the Crypto Hipster, where I talk about everything policy and regulations all around the world. And join me next week as I bring to you 2 new shows, the C Factor and the H Factor. And we're 3 shows a week. Have a wonderful, splendid weekend. I have a podcast coming out this weekend. It's a good one. I'm going to keep you in suspense. Check it out, though. It comes out tomorrow, Saturday. The Crypto Hipster podcast rolls on with season 6. I'm interviewing guests, more guests, and more guests. I have scheduled coming up down the pike. Enjoy. Have a wonderful weekend.